In this video, we're going to discuss what I think is called the BabyTooth HD, and also some of the more recent things that I've been working on, which I haven't shown, but I'm more comfortable showing now for a couple of reasons. So let's first real quick go over this. So this is the BabyHawk HD. I'm pretty sure it's called the BabyHawk HD, and it's another one of those Emax quads which they've done a really good job on, worked really hard to try and get something that's well balanced and well set up that performs really consistently and really well. And they usually offer these things at a really good price as well, and this is no different. When I first took this out of the box, I weighed it, I looked at it, I flew it for like one battery, and I told them, yeah, you guys pretty much knocked it out of the park with this one, which they typically do with all of their quads that they make in this sort of a ready-to-fly category, because they offer a lot of value for the package that they're providing, and this is again no different. It's a 3.5-inch 140 gram dry weight with this thick battery strap on here quad. It has a Vista built in with the Nebula Pro, which is, in my opinion, totally adequate camera and really good camera as well. I do prefer the standard DJI camera just because it does have slightly better picture quality, but this one, if you need to save weight, is fantastic, and I'm totally okay with using this camera exclusively. However, just recently I've wanted to put the regular DJI Vista in my little light things as well, because it's just nicer to have that little 2% extra quality in the footage as well. There's just no cameras or Vistas that anybody can buy right now because they're about to all be sold out, and no one's getting them for another 2 or 3 months because of the shortages of processors in the world. Anyways, continuing on with this, these are 1404 motors in 3700 kV. They work really well on 4S. I don't know if the all-in-one board in there will do 5S. I've asked them, but they just haven't responded yet. I just asked them this morning, so don't blame them if they don't respond on a Sunday. It is a T-mount motor. I really don't like T-mount because it's really finicky and takes a lot of time to switch the props. And the frame, as you can see, is a unibody frame, but it is 4 millimeters thick. And even though it doesn't follow the directionality of the carbon for the strength of the arms, it does have the crossbarring, and this is one aspect that I'll discuss in a minute when I talk about the other frames. This is actually a very important aspect. Moving on, the props are their proprietary props, which are really good because it's actually really quiet. This thing is about as quiet as a 3-inch toothpick, and that's primarily because it's so light, because it just weighs nothing. So when you fly the thing, it doesn't have to make a whole lot of thrust to give you the performance that you might want. The battery that I would recommend it with is an 850 milliamp 4S. And I would also strongly encourage anybody that gets this to swap out that XT30 for an XT60 connector. You're going to get more power, more flight time, overall better efficiency throughout the whole life of the battery that you run on the quad. I'm not really sure why they put an XT30 on there, but that's honestly my only complaint. Otherwise, this thing is really well put together. It's really well balanced. It's got good components for the level of performance that they're going for. This is not going to rip your face off. It's not going to be the most incredible quad you've ever flown, but it is a fantastic basic quad that just does what it's supposed to do. And a lot of that is because of the powertrain and the way it's set up. Now, the all-in-one board that's in here, I believe it's a 25 or 20, I don't know what it is. I actually don't know what the specs are. They haven't gotten back to me, and I may have missed the email where they told me what the specs are. But whatever it is, the all-in-one board actually has black box built in, which is pretty rare in these whoop mount all-in-one boards, and this is a whoop mount board, which is nice to see from Emax because they like making proprietary stuff. Anyways, with the black box built in, I can now actually take a look at the tune and the noise profile of this thing. And in the past, Emax have been really bad about shipping quads with tunes that work well or rates that are usable. Thankfully, they just left it stock on this quad. The rates have changed, the PIDs have changed a little bit, but otherwise it's pretty much stock, and it performs really well on stock Betaflight 4 point whatever is on here, even with D-min turned on, which usually you turn off because it gives you these weird wobbles. Overall, the performance of this thing is pretty good. It's not as fast as a 5-inch. Even a low-powered 5-inch is going to move quicker than this, but it is nicely responsive because of the very low weight. Now, because I have access to black box, I've kind of cheated a little bit and taken it a little step further, mainly because I've been inspecting black box a lot on many of my own quads and trying to improve the performance of my own quads, that I actually took a look at the tune on this thing, and when you look at the black box logs, the tune looks pretty awful if you're used to looking at these things, but it actually performs totally fine in the real world in actual flight. And most important of all, the frame is very specific. I want to reference this frame specifically because when you have a frame like this with all these cross bracings and everything, you have a setup that doesn't have a lot of twist in the motor, not a lot of wobble in the frame. It's a really over beefed up frame for the size and class of quad. And that results in a frame that is very, very quiet and doesn't have a whole lot of noise or resonance in the system. And this is exactly what I see when I look at the black box log for this. The overall noise profile of this frame is very tame and under control, coupled with the fact that these motors are relatively low powered motors, 1404 motors in a pretty low-ish kV, even for 4S. This thing flies really nicely because all the performance and power and everything is in check. Lastly, there's a mounting pattern on top here, which I assume is going to be for GoPro mounts. But now let's actually move on from this. This is 140 grams, and that's going to give you about 110 grams to reach the 250 gram limit if you're going for something that's under 250 grams. Now, if we move on from this and we move on to something like this, which is something that I've been working on for so long now, this is an absolute disaster. I can get it to fly well, but when I look at black box logs and I try to improve the tune, try to improve the filters, try to improve so many things about it, it just does not work out. And it's because of primarily how long and slender the arms are and how much power I'm trying to drive through the system. These are 2204 2800 kV motors, and the resulting issue is this. If I take this motor, I don't even have to put a lot of force on it, the arm twists this much. And sure, I can put cross braces along the arms, and that's pretty much going to solve my issue, and I'm going to be testing that very shortly. I've been trying really hard to solve these vibrations and noise issues without these random cross bracings. In addition, because the all-in-one boards, I've tried like pretty much every single all-in-one board that's available on the market right now, except for this new Emax one. I'm going to be throwing this one into a quad like this to see what kind of power and performance it can handle, because it's performing really nicely on this 4-inch setup. However, I'm pretty sure it's going to choke on this 5-inch setup because of the power of the motors and because of the overall back EMF going into the all-in-one board. And these boards have the gyro built right onto the board itself. So no matter what you do, you have a ton of electrostatic, electromagnetic, all this power flowing through the board, which is going to mess with the gyro. Doesn't matter how much capacitance you put on the pads, it's going to be a problem. And this is the primary hang-up with this particular frame. The frame itself, as you may have noticed, is designed to have the Vista built into the frame as its very structure. Over here, as you see, it doesn't really work without a Vista. It's not really intended to be an analog frame. Now, the analog version, it's pretty easy to get a 5-inch quad under 250 grams with an analog setup because it just weighs 30 grams less than the Vista setup, or yeah, about 30 grams less than the Vista setup, and that's totally fine because this quad with 5.25-inch props and everything as you see it here is about 180 grams, which is about 40 grams more than the Emax quad, the Emax 4-inch. But remember, again, this is a 4-inch quad, smaller motors, smaller props. Everything is smaller on this quad, and the frame is over beefed up. So it's going to work really nicely because of those qualities, because it's well set up. The challenge is getting something that's 5-inch into not only just 250 grams, but getting it into a 300 gram zone. Like, forget 250. I personally think that 300 grams, we're all going to build things to be like 170, 180 grams, and then we're just going to throw a bigger battery on there. Because sure, you could run a 70 gram battery on this and it'll fly fine, but you're going to want extra flight time, extra power, extra speed. And these 5.25 inch props really do give you quite a bit of extra speed, even over a 5-inch prop. So it's really nice to fly this thing when it's working. The trouble is that you can get it to fly well to a certain point, and then when you try to improve the filter tune or the PID tune or something, you can't quite get it that last 10-15% because of all the problems running through the board. And that's the same issue that I saw in the Emax quad, but just the fact that it's running a pretty low powered, it's not slow and it's not low powered at all in just my experience compared to the quads that I have and the things that I build. It's comparatively low powered. I'm looking for more power, more performance, more everything. And so that's where I kind of try to push the limits and see what I can run in this. I've tried the iFlight Beast H7 all-in-one board on this, and that was the closest thing to getting it to fly as well as I wanted to. The frame itself comes in at about 41 grams as seen here, but unfortunately I don't know if this is actually going to be released because it's not easy enough to use, and I don't like making things that are challenging for people to put together. However, if you put 2004 motors on here with a skinny twin blade 5-inch prop, this will actually work pretty well. But in my opinion, I really want at least a 2203 size motor because 5-inch just works really well with 2203 size motors. And I just finished developing this 5.25 inch prop, and it just gives you so much more speed in flight. It's just so much more cruising speed, so much more efficiency. It's so much nicer to fly that I'd really like to make it fit this prop and run this prop as well. So that's a little bit about the Emax quad. If you're looking for a 250 gram quad in general, unfortunately 4-inch is a lot easier to go with, and this particular 4-inch is really well set up and really nicely balanced, and it's probably a good deal. I don't know what the price is yet, but it's probably a really good deal as well with a bit of Vista built in, and it's all ready to go. I would have no issues. I actually would recommend this to anybody that's trying to get into FPV. In the previous video about the DJI quad, which is weird that I'm following it with an Emax quad, but in that previous video there were a number of people that commented about how to start this industry, how to start this hobby, how to get into FPV. And my common answer is pick up a controller, play some simulators, then buy Ready to Fly or build your own. It's pretty simple. Watch some videos. Soldering is not that complicated. Pretty much anybody can learn to do it. As long as you have one eye and like a hand and a foot, you could probably solder well and go that route. It's cheaper, it's easier in terms of not having to deal with the restricted flight zones that make it very challenging to fly the DJI quad. Plus that quad is a much bigger, louder, more substantial craft to fly. This thing at sub 250 grams is really tiny, really light, and you're getting pretty similar, not the same, similar-ish performance to the full 5-inch quad. It's actually very similar performance to the DJI quad. I probably bet this goes about the same speed as the DJI quad, but it's also a lot less quad, a lot less everything. So yeah, that's about all I got for today. I've talked enough about all this stuff. The 250 gram stuff is coming in full force. Now, whether you like it or not, the industry is going to shove it down your throat, and you're going to have to decide if you want it or not. Now, I'm working in a different direction. I'm just taking it as an excuse to start building really light, really tiny things that I personally have always wanted to build, but the market would never really consider as much as it might today, because now we have a lot more skilled pilots that are advanced and want to unlock more performance and want to like access a different class of quad. And so I think it's more suitable to start developing and creating and making things like this because the market now exists for it. And I personally prefer making things for market, for a group of people, not just for myself, but I love making things for myself as well. Anyways, thanks for watching. Floss your teeth. Keeping your teeth clean and keeping oral hygiene is very important. Take care. Bye.